with the idea of, and this will sound like a funny word, but with understanding victimhood. And the first time you said something to a man that just completely startled me, you said to him, or he was talking about how he didn't want to hurt someone with whom he was in relationship. Maybe it was his wife, I don't remember. And you said to him, well, you're just putting yourself as a victim. And that really startled me, because I was certainly brought up to be a pleaser, and I've tried to move on from that place, but that still plays in my mind. So this week, while we've been on board, I've realized, well, a couple of things. Below the 7 or 8 on the emotional scale, anywhere in that emotional vibration, we are experiencing some kind of victimhood.
It's self-inflicted.
Exactly.
Because it's me having pinched myself off from my resources, right, and blaming it on this and that and everything else.
Right, exactly.
And it's logical to understand why you would feel victimized, because you don't feel power, and you don't feel clear, and you don't feel happy, and it's inconceivable that you would do that to yourself until you understand that you're the only one doing anything to yourself.
Right, right.
It's like our announcement that every death is suicide. That shakes people up too.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't always appear to be that way. But there is always cooperation.
So in realizing that I'm always creating my own vibration, I realize that if I'm less than content, that I am creating my own victimization.
You've chosen the point of focus, and you've chosen the point of focus with or away from who you really are. And when you choose the point of focus away from who you really are, you feel diminished or victimized. Yes, and
what I realize is what I've realized on this ship is that I know that when I'm by myself, I don't feel that at all. I just saturate myself in your teachings, and I know the truth.
So when does it show up for you?
Well, it shows up when I'm with other people.
All other people, or just some other people?
No, just where I feel inferior.
So what's happening there?
That's where it shows up, is when I feel, well, actually either way, either superior or inferior, it's judgmental.
But let's talk about why. So we are communicating, because of Esther, with words. We are also communicating because it's the way all communication is, vibrationally. The vibrational communication you are more sensitive to than you realize. You think you are mostly communicating with words, but you are much more, all of you, communicating with vibrations. Most people do not have control of their vibrational perspective. Most people are observing, and they're trending as they've been trending. So most people, doesn't have to be that way, and you certainly may disagree with that, because a lot of the circles you run in are not this way. But if you were viewing the planet, most humans are lower half of the scale most of the time, which means when they hold you as their object of attention, they're not tuned in, turned on, so they're not offering thoughts of appreciation and of positive expectation. So if you're not tuned in, if you've not done your work, if you are the communicator that you are, the sensitive to vibration person that you are, everyone is, then you may be picking up on their derogatory thoughts, not meant for you, just happening. And you take it personally. When Jerry and Esther first began this work, there was a book written by Terry Cole Whitaker about the same time that Jerry and Esther were beginning their work with Abraham. And the title of her book was, "What You Think of Me Is None of My Business."
I love that. Yeah.
And we said to Esther, it's the best title of any book. Esther didn't read the book, but the title says it all. What you think of me, even if what you think of me is directly about me, it still is not any of my business. It's about your take on life. And it has much more to do with where you've been trending and where you are on the emotional scale than it has to do with anything that I'm about. But that's a hard one. Most people, it takes a little while before they are at one with the understanding that your sensitivity to how others think will set you back. And yet we're not encouraging you to run around looking for people who are on the upper half of the scale. We don't think that's a good dependency to form either.
Mm-hmm. No, really the only person to do a check with is your inner being.
But doesn't it feel nice when someone who's all tuned in, tapped in, turned on, holds you as their object of attention? It feels so good. And it makes you want to run around and look for people like that. And you find plenty of those, but it's like Esther's publisher telling her in the beginning of publishing books, don't read anything that anyone writes about you, because the ones that compliment you will thrill you, but the ones that criticize you will take you down. And it's sort of like that, isn't it? Why get dependent upon people who usually are not deliberately focused into alignment? Why not do the wise work first? You get into alignment, and then the law of attraction will only bring you others who are doing the same. That's some kind of wonderful life you've got going for you there. And don't need them to always be right there. They won't be. Afford them the freedom to have plenty of those delicious step one experiences. Just don't take credit or blame for them. Yeah.
So going back to my first question, you have said that the best place to be is satisfied and ready for more.
Yeah, satisfied with what is and eager for more. Yes, isn't that nice?
It's very nice.
When Jerry and Esther were visiting with us, especially in those early days, as we said, Jerry had questions that he'd been saving up his whole life. And he had come to a conclusion about what would be a good way for the world to be. He said there should be islands, and on the islands there should be people that deserve each other. Like there should be an island of rapers, and they should all be on the same island, and an island of thieves, and they should all be on the same island, and an island of murderers. They should be all on the same island because they deserve each other. And we said, those islands exist, they're vibrational islands. And that was shocking to Jerry. And then he said, but wait, that doesn't seem right, because the murdered must be on the same island with the murderer. What's up with that? He just wanted the murderers. He just wanted the bullies on the island. He didn't want the victims of the bullies on the island. And we said it's the same vibration. One day, his neighbor, before Jerry and Esther were together, his neighbor was burglarized. They took her car, tied her up, and threw her in the bushes. And so Jerry decided to be a one-man neighborhood watch. So he started staking out the neighborhood. And one night he was sitting in his car in a dark place behind a tree. And someone came up and knocked on his window and said, will you get out of here? And Jerry said, who are you? And he said, we are undercover policemen and you are in our way. And Jerry said, I thought you were the bad guys. And we said, it's the same vibration. The criminal and the one seeking the criminal all feel the same, because they're all on that same vibrational wavelength. Kind of hard to hear.
They're all trying to solve problems.
When you think about trending, whether you are the one doing the stealing or the one looking for the one doing the stealing, you're still emphasizing stealing, and that's a vibration on the lower half of the scale. Doesn't have to be. Of course there are policemen and doctors on the upper half of the scale. We don't mean that it is always that way. But if you're not vibrationally intuitive and aware and deliberately calibrating, then when you're looking at a problem, you're in vibrational sync with that problem. When you are a problem solver, you are a problem vibrator. You have to be solution-oriented, not problem-oriented, to be on the other end of that stick, you see.
So vibrating with the solution would ask of you to be imaginative in what the solution could be, and just focusing on that.
Or completely neutral.
Or not paying attention at all.
Because in step one, you've already asked the question and it's already queued up for you. And when you are in the vibrational vicinity, which means no thought or pure positive thought, now your inner being can turn up the gas, call your attention to something, and you can have one of those enlightened moments like you all have been describing here even today.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, indeed.